Hey guys, I got the rotating assembly together on a 454 that's going on my C10. I mean, even a redneck can do it. I'm gonna show you how to check the bearing clearances and the ring gap and torque specs and putting the pistons in and all that good stuff. So I got my engine block back from the machine shop. It's bored 60 over, so it's a 468. And I need to wash it good. After you get your engine block back from the machine shop, you need to wash it really good to make sure there's no metal shavings left over from the machining or whatever. Need to take all the oil gallery plugs out so you can blow water through all those. I got some Keith Black hyperprotected pistons with 20, I think it's 25 cc dome. It's gonna be, this is gonna make it with the peanut port heads, 119 cc combustion chambers. This is gonna give it a 10.2 to 1 compression ratio. So I have to run 93 octane pump gas in it. But before I wash it, I want to check the ring gap. The calculation for the ring gap is the bore size times 0.004. 4.310 times 0.004 equals 0.0176, something like that. So 18 thousandths ring gap is what I need. So I got one of my compression rings in the cylinder, and I used a piston like this just to make sure that ring is in there straight like it's supposed to be and about the side right. It's about where it would be at the top with the pistons all the way up, so something like that is close enough. I got an 18 thousandths feeler gauge, and I can check that gap, and it's about perfect. That's how you check your ring gap. Putting the main bearings in, I'm about to set the crank in and check the clearance with some plastic gauge. I'll show you how to do that. I'm not going to put any lube on the bearings. I'm not going to put the rear seal in because I'm going to be taking the crank back out as soon as I do this, put the seal in. So I'm going to ease the crank down on those bearings right there. Like so. So this is plastic gauge. Some of you probably know what it is, but anyway, I mean, I don't know if you can see it. It's hard to even see that little bitty old plastic strip. And this is a gauge. I'm gonna show you how to do that. But anyway, you take just a little bitty piece. You don't need 1/4 inch long. That's all you need. And you set it right there on top of that journal right there. Don't even need to be that long, but that's how long it is. Put your main cap on. Make sure you got it. Make sure you got the right one. This is a number 1. They're numbered. This is number 1. Make sure you got. Make sure you got these little notches lined up. Put your bolts in. And then take it back off. All right, there's your plastic right there. You see it? You find the width. That's millimeter on that side. This is standard size on this side. So that would be 4. Three. I'd say that's 3,000, 003. Well, probably looks 4. Let's call it 004. So that's how much clearance we have on this bearing right here. Mains, the clearance is the journal ID diameter times 0.001. So the mains, it should be 0.0027 to 28. I'm at 003, so we close enough. We good. We're really good. So you take your fingernail or whatever, scratch that plastic gauge off after you check it, and take a rag, wipe it down good. Scrape it off with your fingernail, wipe it down good. Make sure you get all plastic off. If you don't even need to do this unless maybe you just want to make sure, or you don't trust your machinist or whatever. You want to check to make absolutely sure you got the right clearance. You can check every one of them. You can check your rod bearings, same way. So if you buy a rotating assembly, I mean, you probably trust the guy you bought it from or the company you bought it from. You don't even need to check it. But if you want to check your clearance with plastic gauge is real cheap. I mean, it's dirt cheap. So yeah, that's a cheap way to check it right there. So you want to stagger the seal a little bit so it won't leak. They got a gauge here you're supposed to use. I don't use the gauge though, but I do set the seal in there, and then I set the main cap on just to show you how it's going to line up. And it's going to be offset from this surface right here a little bit. So I'm ready to lube up the bearings. This is the same oil I'm running the engine. This is 20W50 high zinc Valvoline racing oil is what I'm going to use. You can use anything you want. If you want to put assembly lube on yours, that's fine. Make sure you put some oil on the lip of the seal, and make sure the lips face it in on the cap and on the block. By the way, you don't need oil underneath these bearings before you stick the bearing. Don't put no oil. Wipe any oil off before you put those bearings in, by the way. Set the crank in. Put some oil on those journals. Spin it around a little bit. Put some more oil on them if you want to. Spin it around some. Spins good, don't it? Put the main caps on one at a time. All of the bearing good, and the lip seal, and the lip of the rear seal. And carefully set that on. Make sure that seal goes back on just like it was, but when you had the crank out, stuck it on. So that looks good. Like I said, this is number one. I mean, they're all numbered. Number three, and they all got an arrow. That means forward. Also, that the notches on the bearings are gonna be lined up too when you put them on right. So I like to squirt a little oil on the threads of the bolts too. So, and I love my power tools. I always like to, every time I tighten the cap down a little bit, I like to turn the crank some. You don't have to, but make sure it turns good. She's ready to torque down. These 2-bolt main big blocks torque to 95 foot-pounds. I like to get them down to about 70 or 80. And then spin the crank. Spins good, torque them all down to 95. I like to go to 100. Just because I can and I want to. Spin it again, we're good to go. Perfect. Yeah, put the bearings, I like to get all the pistons ready, get the bearings, rod bearings on, and the rings on, get all the pistons ready to go. If you're lucky, if your machine shop done right on the rods, you can get the rod caps off without a lot of major problems, because sometimes it can be pretty tight to get off. I like to just take a hammer, stick the handle in there like that, and they usually come right off. Clean that. You don't want no oil under the bearings. None of the bearings, you don't want to put oil underneath them. And get that little groove there lined up. Shove it down on there tight. Wipe the oil off the cap. Same thing, get the groove lined up. Shove it down on there. Get the groove lined up. Stick it back on there. You don't want that down, you don't want to jam that all the way down tight. Just run it down there enough just to get the nuts started so you won't lose the nuts. And keep the cap in order with the rod it come off of and all that good stuff. Because you're gonna be taking the cap back off soon to put the piston in the cylinder. And I like to just use the vise like that. Just something like that right there. All the piston rings has got an order. It says on the box, top groove, second groove, bottom groove. And these bottom rings, you just spiral those on, no problem. And that's the end of that. That's the gap on that. Right there, and it says put the gap on these 1 inch to either side, so I'm gonna start that. Like I said, you can spiral these on. And hopefully if you're not handicapped like me, it'll go right on like that. And this one, there's the gap on that, so I'm gonna start this one over here. Like that. Then if it spins free and it looks good, you're good to go. These other rings it's got instructions in the box tell you how they go, but for example, this is the second ring and it's got wrote on it top, so that means that goes up. If you're lucky like me, you got the cheapest ring expander known to man. And sometimes it works good, sometimes it don't. That didn't work good. This top ring, it don't have a writing on it, but it's got a dot. That dot goes up. The instructions are in the box. And these are Molly rings. I wanted to go with a better ring. And you could tell the difference between the Molly. It's got a little like chrome on the outside instead of black, it's carbon. So yeah, this Molly rings. And this top one's always tougher to get on than the rest of them. And never spiral these on. You'll be in for a rude awakening if you try to spiral those on. And they don't put no extra ones in the box, so when you break one, you're on your own. All right, I got all 8 pistons ready to go in. So I already got number 1 piston in. I got my harmonic balancer bolt in the crankshaft I usually turn it with. After I put one in, I always like to spin it at least 1 round after every piston. And then stop. I'm gonna put number 3 in next, so I want to get this right there so I can put that rod cap on when I get it in. I already got some oil on my journal. Put some oil number 3 cylinder. Oil it up really good. By the way, I got my pistons in the box. Actually, I got it from the machine shop. It's already like that. They had them in order 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's a no-brainer. So next I want to take my number 3 piston and confirm it's number 3 on everything's good there. And take the rod cap off. And like to put the cap in the spot where the piston come out. Just makes sense. That's why you don't want to put your rod cap on tight, hammer it all the way on after you put the bearing on, so it'll be easier to get off. And of course I want to put some oil on it so it'll be ready to go. Put some oil on the bearing on the rod so it'll be ready to go. Put some oil on the piston and rings, skirt, rings. Smear it around good. I want to get one ring gap on this side, 1 ring gap on the other side. This is when you line your ring gap up right before you put the ring compressor on. Compressor, cheapo. Slide it all the way down, just leave a little bit of the skirt sticking out there so you can get the piston started. About like that. Rubber hammer that you built your house with. Make sure your piston goes in the right way. It can go that way or that way. Well, not right, but you gotta have it. I mean, these rods only go one way on the crankshaft. I mean, you engine builders already know that, but you gotta have them in right. So I'm gonna get that one in there. Right there. I'm gonna confirm that my rod is square with the crank before I even start. Make sure this is all the way down. Start going in. Oil rings in. Sometimes you gotta do that to continue. There we go. And she's in. When you get that far, you need to come on this side and get your rod, hold your rod in spot. Tap it in. Make sure your rod bolts don't hit the crankshaft. Put your rod cap on, make sure your notch lines up with the notch on the rod. I just take my impact, run them up, I'm gonna torque them after I get them all in. If your rod moves a little bit, you're probably good. You engine builders already know this, but the crank has got a radius, a little bitty radius on each side. So yeah, flat side, radius side. Radius side goes against the radius of the crank on this side. The flat side goes against the other rod. So your two rods will be sandwiched together with the flats together and the radius to the outside. Also, the number stamped on the rod cap and the rod, in my experience, every engine I worked on, they face to the outside, so that would be the outside for number 5. And if I was putting number 6 in, it'd be facing this way. Turn the crankshaft around, at least one full turn. Make sure nothing's binding up. And you want to put number 5 in next, so you want to stop your crank throw right there. By the way, this ring squeezer, this narrow end, you want that down. Number 7 is next. Yeah, these engines are really easy to build. I mean, even a redneck can do it. Especially if you got a good machine shop. The guy I use, he's a little bit younger than me, but he's still old as dirt, and he's been doing it all his life. So, I mean, he's spot on with everything. So, a good machine shop helps too. By the way, if you're local, Southern Mississippi, it's Mentor's Machine Shop, Petal, Mississippi. Yeah, his name is Dennis. Tell him Rat Rod Bob sent you. So this was a throttle body engine. So it don't have a pump. It don't have a fuel pump shaft in it. So I got one to put in it. You just got to take this plug out right here. Of course, that'll loosen it up. Squirt a little oil in there, put a little oil on the shaft. Stick it in there. Put a little bit of number 2 Permatex on the threads for that plug so it don't leak oil. That's what I like to use anyway. Yeah, because I'm gonna run the stock fuel pump, the bolts up right there. Nothing fancy. And naturally, when you get all the pistons in, it's gonna be harder to turn, but spin it around a few rounds, make sure if you got any hard spots or it's really, really hard to turn, if you can't turn it with a wrench like that pretty easy, then something's wrong, even with all the pistons in. Yeah, we're good to go. Pop up there, piston. Pop-ups, that's what we used to call it back in the day. You got pop-up pistons in it, dome piston. Okay, rotating assembly is in there. Done deal. Oh, but wait, there's more. We got to torque down the rod bolts. 3/8 rod bolts, 50 pounds. After you get all those guys torqued down, spin it and make sure if it's gonna lock up. You wanna know now, not when you try to run it. So we good to go. Red's dazed and confused. He don't have no clue about this kind of stuff, so he has to set this one out. On the next video, I'm gonna redo the peanut port heads, do a red deck valve grind, check them all out and make sure everything's good. We're gonna install a valve train. We're gonna check the valve to piston clearance. We're gonna put the cam in, lifters. We're gonna check the valve springs and make sure we don't have no coil bind because we're going with a little bit higher lift cam, more duration and all that good stuff. So, hey, like and subscribe and stay tuned to see the rest of this go together. All right, appreciate you. See you next time. Oh wait, there's more. If it's gonna be a while before you work on the engine, I always cover it up with a plastic bag. You know, throw something on there so it won't blow off.